this is Matt from the Endorphins, right? And I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And I would just like to start right away with a question about you're from Boston. So I would like to ask you about Boston. So do you feel someone could hear Boston in your music? Even without knowing the place, or somehow you believe there is a relationship with uh, Boston and your music expression.
Yeah, I would say in some ways. So, thank you for having me. First of all, I really appreciate you reaching out and sending me the invite. It's excited to do this.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I would say like Boston is like a general term. There's been a lot of music that's come out of Boston over the course of many decades. Our style of music, um, I definitely feel like it has some of that kind of like 90s alternative college rock, Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth, Pixies, that kind of stuff, which was all like not necessarily Boston, but like Western Mass and just kind of that Massachusetts kind of scene that was going on,
Mhm.
So I think so. I think a little bit. It kind of there's a feel to it.
Mhm. Okay, something that I would like to ask you about is your latest song, single Mirage. This is from your forthcoming album, and I felt there's some sort of kind of suspended energy in Mirage. So, in the way the rhythm section and guitars interact with the melody also. Um, did this interplay, is this just my impression, or is it something that you um, agree with? Or and if I would like to ask you if this interplay emerged when you were writing the song, and how did this interplay emerge when you were writing the song? Did the song I don't start with drums or the rhythm guitar, or I was curious about, like how this song basically was created. When did it start? Basically, when it comes from.
Yeah. So Mirage started with the drums. It started with like a drum loop that I kind of like programmed into Pro Tools, and I started messing around with rhythm stuff. And for this record, I focused a lot more on doing some like drop tuning stuff. A lot of the records in like drop C sharp, which is like not too much heavier than we had some songs on the previous record that were in the same tuning, but almost all the ones on the new record are in that kind of lower, kind of heavier, thicker tuning sound. So I was messing around with that and just kind of messing around with different chords and just kind of more open dissonant stuff. And with Mirage, it just so happened that like that chord with the drum loop, just that big boomy open E string, just really rung out and kind of created that kind of like thick sort of like foundation. So that's where it started, and then it was basically just like that almost. I mean, I think the rhythm is almost the same throughout most of the song for the rhythm guitar. And then there's a lead that I put on top of it, which was just kind of somewhat mimicking like the vocal melody, but then also kind of having its own little like flourishes and, sparkle. And then the bass, what Austin did, he just was flawless with just doing these really cool bends and slides and really, really neat stuff. But yeah, it started with drums. That was
Mhm. Then how do you usually create the lyrics and the vocal melody? Do you create them later, or during, maybe at the same time, simultaneously, with when you're kind of creating the basically the rhythm section? In this
yeah.
case, what happened?
I usually do the music first, only because I feel like sometimes like the music sets like a certain vibe, a certain like emotion, a certain theme, just you can kind of listen to it and it just kind of you feel something from it. So that usually sets like how I perceive the song. So that's what kind of with Mirage, that's how it started. So basically I kind of, once I have like a basic rhythm down, I start kind of like humming like a melody, usually have something kind of like in my head that kind of goes along with, the stuff. And then once I have a melody down, that's when I go and punch in words, and usually it's just random, just nonsense words, just in like the melody of how it's going to sound. Mm-hmm. And then once I have that all complete, I go back like line by line and punch in things that make sense and kind of flow together. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I don't consciously think about lyrics flowing together per se. They just sort of end up flowing together when the song's done, It's like almost like when you create a collage, you don't really know how it's going to look when it's totally done, but then when it's done, it's that. Yeah. I spent a lot of time on the lyrics, like on this record, more so than I've done on any other of our releases.
Mm-hmm. Do you create lyrics with some sort of intention? You plan the theme before, or you somehow shape the meanings while you are basically creating? Or
it's funny, I feel like on this record, listening to it after the fact, listening to the full thing, I understand the lyrics a lot more than when I wrote them and recorded them. I feel like sometimes your subconscious has a way of like coming out.
Okay, you already replied to a question I was planning to ask you, basically, that sometimes you realize kind of you make sense of things later. And basically you answered to two questions. And a question that I would like to ask you, and it's something that is related to this series of conversations or forms taking shape and the creative process. So are there images, places, or moments outside music that shaped your sound, or more than maybe specific artists, more than specific musicians? Or
yeah, I mean, so like I grew up in like a small suburban town, like outside of Boston, pretty like quiet, and everywhere around me was like not stuff I was into. I kind of was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by things that I wasn't really particularly like a fan of. Like all the music scene in like my hometown was like either like metal or hardcore or like kind of jam band, like reggae style stuff. And like I wasn't into that. So I always felt kind of like on my own, kind of like in the middle of nowhere, just kind of like having to kind of seek out stuff because no one really around me was into similar things. So, I mean, I guess I took that kind of isolation, I guess, and kind of like followed it into finding different things to kind of build my own.
Another question about songwriting and a song. Once a song is finished, do you still feel it belongs to you, or does it begin to exist somehow on its own? Does it happen that you kind of rediscover the song, if it were something that is not your own, or is this a feeling that can happen sometimes? And if so, does it happen with some songs, or and did you, if you ever noticed this, what kind of songs are they?
Yes, I would definitely say that like songs take on their own kind of identity and like personality once they're done. Once you listen to it 10, 20 times, it's like, oh, that's how it is. It's like the cement dries, that's how it's going to be forever. And when I go back and listen to some old music, and this is something that I've always kind of associated with music and just nostalgia and like meaning. It's like I can listen to a song on our first album and I can remember like, that day recording it. I can remember like what the studio looked like, where we stayed, you know, just where I was at in life. It's just like kind of a snapshot of like a memory in the time period. And, it's listening to my old self. I can go back and listen to recordings I have from when I was 16 years old, and I'm like, that's its own thing. That's a totally different, that's a lifetime away, So yeah, definitely and I'm like that with any song. I mean, just like the record songs, I'm very nostalgic about like demos and just anything I kind of create.
But something about Mirage, where does Mirage sit within the album? Does it reflect its core? Does it or exist more at its edge? So somehow, is it? Why did you choose this song as a single?
I think I think it represents the album well. I really consciously like tried to make a more cohesive album with this one. All the songs kind of had similar like vibes, similar like emotions. Like it's a spectrum of like emotions, but it's all within like a similar pattern and kind of feel. And so I think Mirage is like a good representation of kind of the more like straight ahead kind of like pop song, like pretty kind of like big like chorus thing, where some of the other songs are a little more weird or a little more like dynamic or but yeah, I think it's the album well. But
No. Okay, let's just something small about maybe the music or music business or music market today. And so the music market is it's tied to visibility, platforms, branding, a constant presence. And do you feel that that pressure entering your process, your creative process, your or something that you try to resist, or something you find yourself negotiating with somehow?
negotiating with, I would say. You have to play the game to a certain extent, but you have to like make sure you maintain an integrity at the same time. Nowadays it's so like tempting for bands to focus on doing like social media content to get their stuff out there, to get eyes on them, because that's kind of the way to do it now, for better or worse. But I just find that as an artist, I don't think about like how far the band is going. I don't think about how successful we'll be. How I'm just really just focused on just like making the best, coolest stuff I can, and that's if people like it, listen to it, cool. If they don't, like, as long as I'm satisfied with it and I feel like it's a good output, that's really like the most important thing. But with that said, you want that visibility and you want those eyes. But if I were to put more energy into like, doing stuff for like social media instead of doing like the other stuff that I'm more like passionate about and care about, like I don't think I'd be as happy.
Okay, to conclude a question that something outside of it. For example, if someone listens to your music alone late at night, what do you hope remains with them after the sound fades?
Just that like our expression as a band, as musicians, is like meant to be like as authentic as we can make it. I do like what we want to do. We don't feel like any pressure to kind of like bend to anything. We just kind of like our styles, and we like our influences, and we like what we like. And it's just our true representation of ourselves. And it's what you see is what you get.
for joining Forms Taking Shape, and very nice conversation. And yes, hope to have the chance to listen to your album as soon as possible. When is it out?
Right now, we're planning to do an early September 4th release.
Okay. After summer. Okay.
Yeah. But we're gonna be putting out a few like singles throughout, leading up to it, and music videos. We're gonna be active. We'll be doing stuff, slow rollout. I'll send you listen so you can check it out.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. See you and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.